Good afternoon and welcome to our afternoon concurrent session for the 37th Annual Gravidas at Risk Conference. We're really glad you're here. As a point of reference, it is November 2019. Our afternoon speaker today looking at perinatal tobacco use is Megan Williams. Megan has a Master of Science Social Work degree. She's a research associate at UNC Center for Maternal and Infant Health in Chapel Hill. And I love to introduce speakers with a fun fact. She is a mother in a couple of years of both a kindergartner and a high school senior, with two others in the middle. So we need to really, really give Megan a huge, warm welcome for Gravidas at Risk. Are you turning?
All right, I think so. Can y'all hear me okay? All right, thanks for the introduction. I also wanted to add that I'm located in Asheville. I work remotely, so a lot of the work that I do is in the western part of the state. If you happen to be in the western part of the state and you need some additional training, I'm happy to provide that for you. So relevant to my fun fact is I used to not really like talking in front of people that much, but then I realized that it's a captive audience and everyone has to listen, so I kind of like it now. So thank you all for your attention. I'm here to talk about perinatal tobacco use. If I can, what do I point at?
Point at this guy. Okay. Wait, Lona probably turned it off.
Oh,
Save
yeah,
the battery
that's
because
right.
she's like that.
There we go. Okay, I don't have any disclosures to report. Nobody pays me a bunch of money to advertise anything, unfortunately. So here's a rough agenda. I'm going to talk about the scope of the problems, the scope of tobacco use in North Carolina. I'm going to give you some info about some hot topics. So we're going to talk about vaping and e-cigarettes. I can answer some questions about the Lyme disease outbreak if you're interested in that. And I'll show you a couple of updated videos and such to help with that. Then we'll talk a little bit about intervention. Typically, I spend a lot more time on the intervention piece, and that's something I can do at your location if you would like me to do that. I'll just give you kind of a brief overview of that and also some tools that might be helpful as you try to address this issue. All right, so tobacco use in women of reproductive age in North Carolina. This is what our state looks like in terms of our tobacco use. I like to use women in general of the reproductive age when we talk about tobacco use in pregnancy because we know that what percentage of pregnancies are unintended in North Carolina, or just generally speaking, roughly? Like 50%? Yeah, it's like half. So if we're talking about prevention of certain things in pregnancy, we really need to talk about all women of reproductive age. Not that we're only, reproductive vessels or anything like that, but that the fact that half of pregnancies are unintended is really key. So the red maroon bars are cigarette users. So we have it's about a 15% incidence rate of tobacco use among women across the board, and then we have higher rates typically with folks that are lower income and lower levels of education. But it's really anybody can be a cigarette user, but those are just where we see higher rates. The green bar, however, shows use of ENDS. Does anyone know what ENDS stands for? Anybody want to venture a guess? So close, yes. You got it. So it's an electronic nicotine delivery system. So those would be your Juuls, your vapes, your e-cigarettes, all of these things that you see young people using. And if you look at the green bars, they're really pretty different from the red bars, right? Where do we see higher rates of use than we do of the cigarette products? Young, right? So the youth, where we have done really great in terms of reducing their rates of smoking and preventing smoking. We've done a lot of work in that over the last couple of generations. Well, those are the folks that are the most likely to pick up the e-cigarette habit. So we have a whole new challenge that we're looking at now. And as you see, it kind of cuts across all populations too. So we don't really have outside of the youth hotspot, we also have to be concerned about sort of everybody because everyone's trying these products. All right, so transitioning to talking specifically about pregnancy, can you all see this? Can you read what it says? So I'll read it for the folks in the back. So this is an actual ad. I don't know what year it's from. It's probably like the 60s or 50s. It says, taste isn't the only reason I smoke. People are always telling me that smoking causes low birth weight. Talk about a win-win-win, an easy labor, a slim baby, and the full flavor of Winston. So we really, I see people, you've seen it, so this is where we come from, right? So it's been a really long uphill battle for us to move from this to, actually low birth weight babies are not a good thing. I mean, yes, you might think it's better in labor, but it's not actually healthier for them. So it's a big challenge that we've overcome. And we still have a problem with tobacco use in pregnancy. In North Carolina, it's about 8.7% of births, which is about 10,000-ish. But that's based on birth certificate data. And we know that birth certificate data is underreported, right? Because it's self-report. And sometimes they don't even actually ask the question. It really depends on the setting. Some places they just sort of walk in and they make a bunch of assumptions and then they ask you for the name, and that's kind of how it goes. But other places, they ask, but the woman may or may not be honest. So we can assume that this is pretty low compared to what's actually happening. In a very busy slide, we love to show all the counties in North Carolina, so you can try to pick your color and find your spot on the map. The red states, or the red maroon-colored counties would be the counties that have more than double the statewide average, so more than about 16% of pregnancies. And again, that's on the birth certificate data, based on the birth certificate data, so probably what's actually happening is higher. And then next would be the yellow, that's about 1.5 times the state average. The green folks would be around the average, and the gray would be lower than the average. So does that look about right for what you see in your county, if you can find yourself on the map? We know that in some counties, we did some chart reviews over the years at health departments, and some of those reviews showed rates of like 30% smoking in pregnancy. So we feel like that's probably a little more accurate in terms of specifically women that would be in health department populations. So we have a much higher rate than that 8%. And the reason that this is still something, even with all the other challenges that we deal with in pregnancy, the opiate crisis and all these other things, the reason that we're still needing to keep this as a focus is that tobacco use is associated with the top causes of infant mortality in North Carolina. And as we all know, our infant mortality rate in North Carolina is not good. We're 43rd best, which means 8th worst in the country as far as our infant mortality rate. We're better than Mississippi and West Virginia, I think, and I think Kentucky perhaps. So we're not, we don't have great company down here in the bottom quartile of infant mortality rates. And this comes from a report done by the ACOG about a year ago, and they attributed specific rates of all of these different things, SIDS and preterm deliveries, specifically to the use of tobacco in pregnancy. And the bottom line is, if there were no smoking in pregnancy in North Carolina, we could reduce, just by that alone, our infant mortality rate by 10 to 20%. So it's a really big, concern that we still need to address with women in North Carolina. Here's some of the other outcomes related to tobacco use in pregnancy. On the left-hand side, you see the things that are related to the maternal and fetal harms. You see all the top concerns that we have in pregnancy listed there. And then on the right side are the impacts into childhood from that smoking during the pregnancy. So things like childhood obesity have been linked to tobacco use in pregnancy. Attention disorders, ADHD, cancer, diabetes in adulthood, all of these things can be linked back to the use of tobacco in pregnancy. So they're lifelong impacts for the child. Another thing that we like to mention is the fact that secondhand smoke can increase blood lead levels in children that are exposed to it. So this was put out, I think, on November 4th of this year by the Duke Law Policy Center. And they've linked, so if you think about lead exposure, we've had some issues in North Carolina with lead exposure in water at childcare centers. That's something that we've heard a lot about. This is kind of a newer one. By the way, we also have lead in secondhand smoke. So if you think in terms of lead poisoning and what the impacts are of that on a child and how that might be a social determinant of health, this is certainly something that we need to make sure folks understand and spread the word about. It can be linked to ADHD and aggression and lower IQ scores. All of these are not great outcomes for children. And also third-hand smoke. I just like this picture, so I put it up. This third-hand smoke is really just what's in your upholstery, what's in the curtain, what's in the car. If you can smell it, that means there's something there that's probably carcinogenic and not great for your health. All right, so moving on to electronic nicotine delivery systems. This is just kind of an overview of the different types of ENDS products. I have some of them here. You probably won't be able to see very well in the back, but I'll just kind of hold some of them up so you can get an idea. This would be like a Sig-a-light kind of product that's on the left-hand side. So it looks a lot like a cigarette, but it's not. It's an electronic cigarette. This one would be one of those big tank systems that if you see someone driving down the road and there's like billowing clouds coming out of their car, you see them on those, they look like they're on fire. It's probably one of these. And sometimes there's competitions with like smoke rings and all sorts of things. And then on the right-hand side, you have your Juul, which is really the most common. I'm going to show you all a video about this in a minute. But this is really small, right? It's really easy to conceal. This is what the young people are using at tremendous rates. Looks a lot like the thing I brought my presentation on, right? Looks a lot like a USB drive. And here's the little thing you plug in your finger. And then another one that is really common with young people is this one. It's called the Soren Drop. I don't know if it's up there. It's not. But this is probably the second most common behind the Juul with young folks. And they're really easy to conceal, right? You just kind of use something in the back pocket. With Juul, they've actually created some clothing that there's like a Juul hoodie that you can buy where, there's a little string that's actually a tube, and on one side you put your Juul and you tuck it in a pocket. On the other side, you just kind of, inhale it through that side, and it looks like you're chewing on your sweatshirt, right? There's not really much evidence when you use a Juul. There's just sort of a pretty smell, or it could be a lotion or something. So there's lots of ways that it can be concealed. So ENDS in reproductive age women, there's been some official reports that have come out, but these products are moving so quickly that anything that gets published is pretty much out of date already. So this rate of 3.6% of pregnant women using ENDS products is probably really low, because that was from 2014 to 2017, and then Juul didn't even come on the market until I think 2015 or so, and then it exploded. And while some folks try to give the e-cigarette products a pass, most of them have nicotine. The Juul has really high levels of nicotine, in fact. And the nicotine in itself is a reproductive toxicant. So knowing that even though we don't have specific research with the long-term impact, that takes a while, we can make a lot of assumptions about what we're going to see with these products, right? We know that nicotine impacts fetal lung and brain development. We know that other smokeless products, which you can sort of use as a pretty good comparison, like dip or something like that, where you don't have the smoke part of nicotine, those have been linked to preterm delivery and stillbirth and infant apnea. And then we have the issue of the lung inflammation and the lung diseases that we've seen sweeping across the country. And those are linked to vegetable glycerin, which is it's a really thick, kind of sticky substance. Propylene glycol, same, and flavoring compounds. And some of the short-term research that we've seen already from those is an increased rate of lung infection because it's inflamed. There's cell death that is associated with the inhalation of these products. And if you even just think about kind of a sticky substance in your lung, it's going to be a lot easier to attract and kind of contract a respiratory illness because of that. And then recent research is showing us that women perceive, and everyone really, perceives that ENDS are less harmful. And they're certainly less stigmatizing during pregnancy and other times. And we like to differentiate between the industry likes to call it vapor, right? They even use vape as a verb and as a noun. But it's not really water vapor, it's really aerosol, because water vapor is water and air. Water dissolved in air. But aerosol suggests that you have all these other things in it. So there's volatile organic compounds. There's other cancer-causing chemicals. There's heavy metals, ultrafine particles that are irritating to the lungs. There's diacetyl or diacetyl, which if you've ever heard of popcorn lung, has anyone heard of that? There was a illness that came out from folks that were working in the popcorn, like micro popcorn manufacturing plants, because the diacetyl was airborne and they were inhaling that into their lungs. Well, there was this whole category of diseases called popcorn lung because it was from that, and that same stuff is in e-cigarettes. So we know that the research is going to be pretty damning whenever it actually comes out. Now, ends are the most common tobacco product for youth and young adults. This is from last year, but we know that rates have increased since last year. And last year, about 5% of middle schoolers were using these products, and about 20% of high school students, which is much, much higher than the number of high school students that are using cigarettes. And among current e-cigarette users in the young 18 to 24 age group, 40% of them have never been regular cigarette users. So it's a whole new category of kids that wouldn't have even considered smoking that are using these e-cigarette products. And here's just a little more about the Juul. It's a relatively new product. It's a sleek design. A single pod of the Juul has the equivalent of a pack of cigarettes worth of nicotine, but it's a lot more efficient in its delivery. So with a cigarette, you're burning some of the nicotine out the back end, right? You're not getting all of that into your lungs. But with a Juul, it's nicotine salt, and it's only activated when you inhale. So you're not wasting anything. So you're actually getting about 1.5, maybe 2 times as much nicotine as you would with a pack of cigarettes. So it's really easy to get addicted that way if you're using it at that high of a level. Right, some videos. Yeah, that one.
For one of today's hottest products, if you don't look carefully though, you might miss what it's advertising. It's this little thing, and it's called
It looks more like a flash drive or a computer device, but it is really another kind of e-cigarette.
Since it launched in 2015, Juul has taken over about 70% of the e-cigarette retail market share. It's now worth about $16 billion, and that success is often attributed to its sleek design. But the same features that make Juul a well-engineered product also make it attractive to young people, many of whom have never smoked before. And that has people worried, because devices like Juul might be designed to help smokers get off cigarettes, but they're also addicting a new generation to nicotine. So what makes this one e-cigarette so different from the rest? Answering that question starts with what you see on the outside. Juul is an e-cigarette, but it really doesn't look like one. It looks like a tech product, and it's tiny. That allows smokers to get a nicotine fix without having to worry about social stigma, but also allows young users to consume nicotine inconspicuously without having to worry about who sees them.
Going to school, having this in your pocket is a lot better than having like something this big that looks kind of like a lightsaber. You could kind of Juul anywhere in discreetness.
That discreetness is a big shift for e-cigarettes. Since the first patent in 1930, designs haven't been very subtle. The first generation of e-cigarettes mimicked the shape, size, and colors of traditional cigarettes, sometimes even with a fake light-up tip. The second and third generations focused on larger and more customizable devices with longer battery life and big plumes of vapor. Then came the Juul, a stripped-down version with no buttons, no big plumes of vapor, and no complex refilling or recharging. And it comes in a variety of bright colors that set it apart from other e-cigarettes, which made it look like a tech product that young people were already familiar with. That is why people call Juul the iPhone of e-cigs. And that similarity makes sense. Juul's founders met at Stanford Design School, and one worked as a design engineer at Apple. They created the first e-cigarette that looked more like a cool gadget and less like a drug delivery device. This wasn't smoking or vaping, it was Juuling.
Yeah, like how grandmas have iPhones now, it's kind of like normal kids have use them because it looks so modern. We kind of trust modern stuff a little bit more, so that like we can use it. We're not gonna have any trouble with it because you can trust it.
The tech aspect of it, once people get introduced to it, and then once they're introduced to it, they're staying because they're conditioned to like all those different products, and then this is another product, and it's just another product until you're addicted to nicotine.
And that is where it gets tricky. A 2017 study found that 25% of 15 to 24-year-olds recognized the Juul in a photo, but the majority of them didn't know that it always contains nicotine. It's easy to trace that information down. You just have to look at the ads. from adult ex-smokers.
My name is Lauren.
My name is Brian.
My name is Carolyn.
My name is Amon. I'm 38.
But when Juul first launched, the marketing looked a lot different. When you put those ads alongside old cigarette ads, the similarities are pretty striking. Both marketed relaxation, sharing, travel, freedom, and sex appeal. It's now illegal for cigarette brands to use these kinds of suggestive advertising themes. But for e-cigarette manufacturers who had products on the market before 2016, those strategies are still unregulated. That's why brands like Candy Pens can be promoted in DJ Khaled music videos, just like tobacco corporations use to pay stars to smoke their cigarettes on screen. But compared to cigarettes, Juuls are a lot easier to start using. Typical e-cigarettes have between 6 and 30 milligrams of nicotine per milliliter of vape liquid. One Juul pod packs in 59 milligrams. That's 3 times the nicotine levels permitted in the European Union, which is why Juul isn't sold there. But here in the US, e-cigarettes don't have the same restrictions, even though we know that nicotine dependency can climb developing brains for future substance abuse disorders. The company says that Juul's nicotine content is about as much as a pack of cigarettes, though tobacco experts say it's likely more than that, and Juul's have a patented system for delivering that nicotine. Most e-cigarettes use a potent version of nicotine called freebase that gives users a strong hit, but Juul's vaporize liquid made from nicotine salts. Those salts allow nicotine to be absorbed into the body at about the same speed as regular cigarettes, much faster than most e-cigarettes. But unlike freebase nicotine, which can be irritating, nicotine salt goes down smoothly. So Juul packs a bigger nicotine dose into a much more pleasant hit than most devices on the market. And that has public health officials worried, because the US almost beat nicotine addiction on kids.
As cigarette smoking among those under 18 is lower, the use of other nicotine products, and especially e-cigarettes, has taken a drastic leap.
In April, the FDA demanded that Juul submit documents on its marketing and research. A group of senators sent a letter asking Juul to stop using flavors and designs that appeal to children, and there are now 3 lawsuits alleging that Juul contains too much nicotine. In response to the concerns, the makers of Juul have pledged $30 million to combat underage use. Merchandise and marketing materials now have big warning labels on them, and the company is developing lower nicotine pods. The trouble is, there's still a lot we don't know about the long-term health impacts of e-cigarettes. Juul, like other e-cigarettes, might have set out to design a solution to a public health problem, but in a lot of ways, their product has created a new one.
So a few notes about that video. It was done about a year ago, so a couple of things have changed. First of all, we have joined the lawsuit in North Carolina against Juul. I'm happy to report. So that's something that's happened. Our Attorney General has joined that lawsuit.
These are 2 drinks from the same store. They're the same in almost every way, but this one costs $3 extra.
That was interesting. I like that. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is they mentioned, Juul's pledging $30 million to reduce youth use and all this stuff, but they spend something like $19 million a day on advertising, so that's a drop in the bucket. Like there is so little we can do really with the money that we get in public health to combat some of this. Like the amount of resources that are being used by these companies is pretty astounding. All right, so there's another video. Sorry, there's 2 in a row. You've probably seen some of these on the internet, but sometimes it's not this one. Yes, that one. Sometimes they explode. So look at the guy by the car. Feel bad. It's not quite as good as the word pictures, but it's close. That's it. So the burns, those are typically the bigger kind of mods that would explode. They have these big batteries in them, so anything like that could potentially explode. And the injuries that result from those are really nasty because it's pocket, so it's like genital area, right? Or it's your mouth or your face. So there's that aspect too for to kind of keep in mind. The last thing I wanted to mention about these products is the poison control issue that comes along with the liquid nicotine. So just to give you an idea of what they look like, when you buy the refillable stuff, so like this is from jewel shop or big shops and Octopus Garden and all these places, they sell the liquid nicotine in bottles that are like this, and typically they're childproof when you buy them. But then once you open it, or once you put it into one of these, it's no longer childproof, right? And people just sort of lay these around the house, they leave them on the table, they have them in their car. And a teaspoon of the liquid, e-cigarette liquid, if it contains nicotine, which the vast majority of them do, even if they're labeled otherwise, a teaspoon of that can kill a 20-pound toddler. So it can also kill a pet, for folks who don't have children. But it's really important to make sure folks understand that this is poison, and it smells like fruit or Jolly Ranchers or candy or mint, and so a kid is going to be attracted to it. They can be poisoned by it, they can get nicotine burns on their skin. And that this chart shows you some of the reports that have been received by Poison Control. There's just been a rise in that, and that doesn't count for folks that go straight to the ER with their kids in distress. So this is just another thing that we need to make sure folks understand that you really need to treat e-cigarette liquid like it's poisonous leak, so it's a pain solution. It's really interesting. All right, what are the questions? Anyone have questions now about the e-cigarettes stuff that I went over? Yeah. That's a really good question. They're comparable to cigarettes. It really just depends. I mean, people treat it like a hobby, so you can spend as much as you want to customize your products. But the jewels, I think usually you can find a coupon for those, and you can get a jewel with like 4 refills for something around $40, which, for 4 packs of cigarettes, and then the device also is really not that much. Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah, so hookah would be nicotine suspended in water that's vaporized that way. So it's like, they look like, I think I had a picture before, but it's like it kind of looks like a bong. And it's basically the same as like a water bong, and usually folks, it's a communal thing. Like in Nashville, there's bars dedicated to those. And the concentration of nicotine in that is really high. And in the environmental smoke as well, it's really high, just because of the way that it's vaporized with the water. It's really high. Yeah. Yeah, so there's a lot, I think, yeah. Right, there's not a lot of research on that yet, but I think we can assume that whatever's in the aerosol, anything that's in the aerosol is going to land somewhere. So, if there's carcinogens in the aerosol, there's going to be carcinogens around. And for a while, vapes were getting a pass indoors, but, it's become more prevalent that you're not allowed to use them inside. And the Smokefree schools policies cover vapes as well. And that's something that some schools aren't aware of, but that, they're telling nothing now. Yeah, of course they are, because, teenagers. But they're a lot of times they're taking some of the pods or the liquid and they're adding THC or they're adding, other sorts of things. Sometimes they'll bake alcohol even, because they can get drunk without having the calories. I mean, there's all sorts of things that we've heard. Yeah. Yeah, it's terrible. I know, I'm like the doom and gloom lady. All right, any other questions that I can cover? Yeah. All right, so I wanted to also kind of move into mentioning the link between tobacco use and opiate use. We're all on the midst of, an opiate crisis. This chart shows an 830% increase in neonatal abstinence syndrome in infants in the years from 2004 to 2014. We know that it's continued to increase in that time. So the red circle would be like what we would see in around 2004 versus 2014 in the larger green circle. And the reason that I mentioned this during the tobacco presentation is that we know that the interaction between tobacco and opiates really increases the harm to the infant and increases the neonatal abstinence syndrome. And really a dose response kind of way. So the more that they use tobacco on top of the opiates, even with women that are opiate maintained, right? So even women that are kind of in treatment and doing well, if they're still smoking, they're still going to have higher rates of been some really interesting info that's come out around the first day or so of neonatal abstinence syndrome being mostly linked really to the nicotine withdrawal and not so much to opiates, just because of the half-life and kind of the chemistry around that. So the nicotine, if they can stop using that, they're really going to have a big impact on the wellness of their child postpartum. So it's something to keep in mind. And of course, I want to give you resources as well around that, since we talked about drug use during pregnancy. So in case you weren't aware of the resources that we have in North Carolina, that 1-800 number is a warm line. So if you have someone that's wanting treatment, that's pregnant, that's how you can figure out if there's beds available. And of course, there's not enough resources in the state typically to cover the need, but that's where you would start if you wanted to see if there was beds available for treatment. Also, Jude Jones is the email address you have up there, and this is her life's work, and she's very responsive and tries to help any way she can. And also, the North Carolina Pregnancy and Opioid Exposure Project is another place that you can get more information about options. I'll pause for a moment. I've heard also, especially in western counties, that meth use in pregnancy is still a pretty big issue. Raise your hand if you feel like that's something that you see as much of, or maybe more than opiates where you are. Yeah, that's what I've heard. I think that's something that, because opiates are such a hot topic right now, it seems like we might need to also think more about meth use. All right, so this is sort of a shortened version of the behavior change 5 days presentation that I typically do in like health departments and private practices. But I did want to go through what we can do around tobacco use. So the Public Health Service guidelines are that for non-pregnant adults, so just for your typical tobacco user, a combination of behavioral intervention and pharmacotherapy is really your best option for success. So, and the more intervention, the better. So if you can do a brief intervention, great. That's usually the most that you can do in a primary care setting. If you happen to have the ability to refer to more intensive treatment, that's great. And that combination with pharmacotherapy is typically the best case for folks that aren't pregnant. But for pregnant women, behavioral intervention is really the first line of treatment. You don't want to use nicotine replacement in pregnancy. If you're really replacing just one type of nicotine with another, you know that the nicotine in itself is a reproductive toxin, so it's not a great option. There are some drug options that might be okay, like opium in pregnancy category C. So in some cases that might be recommended, but there's just not a lot of great research around success of pharmacotherapy in pregnancy. So we would consider behavioral intervention as your first line of treatment, and that would be what you want to use. So the 5 A's are to ask the patient about her tobacco use status, advise her to quit with personalized messages, assess her willingness to quit in the next 30 days, assist with pregnancy and parent-specific, if applicable, information and support, and then to arrange for follow-up during subsequent visits. So the ask, there's 3 different ask questions that are evidence-based. So for non-pregnant patients, the ask would be, in the past, which of the following statements best describe your cigarette smoking? So A would be, I've never smoked or smoked less than 100 cigarettes in my lifetime, which works, unless they started smoking like yesterday, but that's pretty much the non-smokers, right? I stopped smoking over a year ago, I stopped smoking less than a year ago. All of those 3 would be your non-smokers. And then I smoke but not every day, or I smoke daily. Can you see how this might be a little more effective than do you smoke? It gives people like a range of options. And some of people might be, well, no, I don't smoke because I stopped folks that did go back to smoking after the baby was born, and then E would be people that haven't cut down at all. So we also want to screen for other tobacco products. Here's some pictures. There's the hookah that you asked about. So that it's tiny in this picture, but actually they're like this big. That's what they look like. They're kind of a tabletop sort of device. The dissolvables in the bottom left, those are some that folks sometimes don't recognize. Those would all be things that you put in your mouth that dissolve. So like the Tic Tac looking things, like the things that look like toothpicks, all those would be things that go in the mouth and dissolve. The loosely plug and the twist are all different forms of loose tobacco. And the snoo up in the top right, that's what I've actually seen really recently. There's a new brand that's been advertised at gas stations in Northern Carolina. Smaller little packet. It's like loose tobacco, but it's you like put it in. I think it's a little less spitty. And there's the jewel again. So you want to screen for all of these as well, just so that we can get a full picture of the tobacco use, especially with young people since they're using e-cigarettes the most. You also want to screen for secondhand exposure. Ask about the home and the car and the workplace as far as tobacco, secondhand smoke exposure. And then for parents or caretakers of children, you want to ask about both parents, or the parents are, whether they smoke in the car or the home. And then you want to ask about anyone else they're exposed or that they're around on a regular basis. If they're in regulated child care centers, which is about half of North children in child care, they have to be smoke-free by law. But in unregulated child care centers, grandma or anyone on the street, it's really important to ask about that setting because it's quite possible they could be exposed to tobacco smoke. So step 2 is going to be our advised step. So this is when you want to give a really clear message about quitting tobacco. You don't want to say, well, you know, it's not very good for you. You want to be really clear and direct about, quitting smoking. And one of the best delivery people for that message would be providers. So nurses and doctors, the research has shown that even just you saying that to your patient makes a big difference in their willingness to quit. So you want to assess her willingness to quit in the next 30 days. Behavior change folks make a big deal about this 30-day time period just because usually if someone's willing to commit to a specific time period, they're more likely to follow through. But I saw some research recently that was really interesting that had 3 categories of people. One were people that were willing to quit in the next 30 days. Another group was people that maybe were willing to quit, and then there was a third category of people that said, no, I'm not ready to quit. And they went through kind of just a motivational interviewing session, and then no, I don't want to quit people actually had the highest rates of success. So, I mean, you don't need to only consider the folks that say, yes, I want to quit. Having a conversation with everyone is important just because you never know what might actually speak to them and attack them later. So if they're yes, you're going to assist with a quit attempt. And so this is the point where you would talk through a plan. Talk through what are her problem-solving methods that she thinks would be helpful in trying to quit. Most folks have had a previous quit attempt because it usually takes, the average is 7 times that it takes someone to quit, 7 tries. So typically they have kind of what I did last time that worked is this, and what didn't work for me is this. So talking through that plan can be helpful. If they happen to have a support person with them, like a partner or a mom or a friend, turning to that person and saying, well, what are you going to do to help support her when she's quitting smoking is a really good idea. Trying to put that onus back in her environment because that's where she'll get the most benefits. We really recommend doing a quit line referral. How many folks have used the quit line or heard of the quit line or aware of the quit line services? We have, which is great. We have the It's really helpful to remove all tobacco products, lighters, ashtrays, all of those things can be triggers for people that are smokers, and trying to set themselves up for success by getting rid of all that, and obviously the cigarettes and everything else too is a good idea. Talking through how to manage some of the withdrawal symptoms that they might feel can be helpful. So mitigating that by drinking a lot of water, by getting a lot of fresh air and exercise, and also letting folks know that there's usually an end point at which they're not going to feel those withdrawal symptoms as much. It's usually about 7 to 10 days. It really depends on the person and what level of nicotine they're used to, but it does go away. Like there's an end. It's sort of like labor, right? Like you know it's short term. It'll go away eventually. You can just kind of get through it. Decide what to do in situations when she usually uses tobacco. So what are her habits? For a lot of folks, it's really a compulsive kind of thing. Like it might be a mouth thing, or it might be something they need to do with their hands. So talking through what that is for her can be helpful. As strange as it sounds, for some people, just having something in their hand, like a straw or candy canes, that time of year, and using that as a substitute can help, a little with some of the behavioral part of that. Chewing gum, using mints, even just breaking up the patterns. Like if she smokes in the car when she's on her way to work every day, having something else to reach for, and kind of pre-positioning that and having that ready. Just thinking through that and talking through that with her can be helpful. So step 4, assist. We want to provide self-help materials for them. We happen to have a lot of those. Some of you may have seen the table that's right by the bathrooms, which is our table that has all of these materials on them. These are brochures that are at appropriate reading levels, I think like 8th grade or 6th grade reading levels, in English and in Spanish. One of the more popular ones that we've recently come up with is the e-cigarettes pamphlet. We also have a bunch of tear sheets that I don't know why I just put on the slide, but so the benefits of being tobacco free on one side, and then on the other side, e-cigarette information, so facts about e-cigarettes. All of these, we also have provider cards. We have a provider bulletin that I have on my table out there. If you'd like any samples of those, please feel free to take them. And you can order them through the Women's Health Branch. There's a publications form that you have to fax, unfortunately, but they are responsive, and you get a box of materials delivered to your workplace for free of charge. I don't know why I have 2 of the same slides, sorry about that. So we want to arrange for follow-up to monitor her progress and provide support, encourage her, express willingness to help, talk through some of her challenges if she had some. If she had a, quote, unsuccessful intent, helping her reframe that as a success because she was able to quit for 3 days, or 7 days, or whatever amount of time, that she was able to reduce the amount of tobacco exposure at least in pregnancy. And then maybe she can build on that next attempt. All right, so for those that aren't ready, we have the 5 R's, which is really just kind of a way of framing motivational interviewing. So we want to figure out what's relevant to her. What are the reasons that might speak to her about quitting based on her health or environment or her individual situation? What are her risks? That usually folks can tell you what the risks are of tobacco use in pregnancy. So you can elicit those from her and maybe supplement with some additional information. What are the rewards? Financial reward is the one that comes to mind immediately for me, because I think about, I've done a few of those calculators to kind of figure out what a pack-a-day habit might look like for someone financially. And so for a pack-a-day, for like a $5 pack of cigarettes, I know that's a little high, that would be $1,850 a year. So that's a lot of money, especially for someone who's pregnant or who's, low income. That's a lot of money. You can buy a lot of diapers with that. What are their roadblocks? Do they have a smoke-free support system? Is there someone that will quit with them? A lot of times women name stress as one of the biggest reasons that they smoke. And so talking about what other methods she might think about for stress relief can be helpful. And repetition, this isn't something we just sort of want to talk about once and then be done with. It's something that we want to mention throughout the healthcare encounter. Okay. So this is an example of a motivational interviewing reflection and restating, yes. She definitely did a lot of that. What else did she do? She was really empathetic, right? Like she said, yeah, you're stressed. Like she made sure that the woman was feeling heard. And then she really, one thing that's really helpful is that she would, anything that was even a teensy bit positive, she would lift that up and then elaborate on that. You know, sounds like blah, 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 but you really do, it sounds like Cardi really wants to quit. If you did decide to quit, what on a scale of 1 to 10, you know, what do you think your greatest success be? So, you know, reframing it and trying to move the conversation towards quitting, even though that's not how it started and that's not certainly what the intent of the patient. Some folks just find it helpful to see an actual demonstration. For fun, if you want to look up the ineffective position, there's also an example of what not to say, and it sounds, for some folks, a little bit familiar because it's very lectury. It's very much like, you really should, like you really shouldn't smoke. It is having this and this and this impact, and I think sometimes we fall into that because we feel pretty strongly about it. But anyway, for fun, if you like to, in your free time, watch that. Alright, so what are the tools we have available? We have lots of tools. I mentioned several of them already. I also want to mention a couple of websites. So there's one called Smokefree Women and Mom that's pretty good. It's someplace in the federal government. I think it might be CDC, I can't remember, or HRSA. But they have lots of tools and kind of text options and calculators and different things that people might be interested in. Craving journal, ways to sort of self-help and track their quit attempts. The Quit Line has a website as well that has, and I didn't mention this before, but the Quit Line also has a text option that's relatively new. I haven't heard a lot of reviews yet about how well that's going, but it is an option, and for some folks who really don't like talking on the phone, like all millennials pretty much, text might be a better approach for those folks. There's our brochures again. Here's a picture of the You Quit to Quit practice bulletin. We have pharmacotherapy in there, billing information. You can bill for smoking cessation counseling under the 99406 and 99407 code. And if you need more help with that, I can help you figure that out. Also, prescriptions during pregnancy and lactation. And we also mentioned trauma-informed child care. That again is free. This is our website, youquit2quit.org. There's my contact information. And I just want to mention a couple of other programs that we have at the Center for Maternal and Health. One is safesleepnc.org. It's we got like a teeny little bit of money. And so we've developed a small, we don't have enough capacity to travel the state like we do with the tobacco stuff just yet. We're hoping we get more. But there is an online module that's, I think, has 1.5 nursing contact hours with it that you can look up and go through if you'd like. It's under safesleepnc.org. You can also get to it through this website, so it's certain links. Mombaby.org is our kind of larger website that everything's cataloged under. But the new Safe Sleep info focuses a little more on what we call nighttime parenting. So recognizing that your baby doesn't necessarily only sleep in one place all night long, right? There's a lot of movement, a lot of things that happen. A lot of us had babies that didn't sleep well at all and had to nurse every 2 hours for like a year. So, there's a recognition that there is a lot that happens at night. There's ways to reduce risk, and there's certain populations that are much higher risk than we need to say, the message is super clear, absolutely no quit sleeping. But if you fall asleep, here's some things that you might want to think about if you're sleeping or your baby. It's better to sit up in your bed, get out of one of the things that came out of that was this website called newwomanhealth.com, which we're trying to create as a clearinghouse of evidence-based information in this time period. So not just about baby, mostly about mom, about person, about this person that she needs in the period, so that she doesn't have to feel like why am I still thinking of baby. So if you'd like to check that out, there's also a social media toolkit on that website that you can promote if you have a website or if you have Twitter or Facebook or any of those things. So that's the end of my formal presentation. Does anyone have any more questions about, I have the e-cigarette products up here if anyone wants to look at them. Oh, I didn't mention, here's one of our Safe Sleep products that you can also order through the Women's Health branch. Any more questions? Yes?
Do you have recommendations for a good app to help stop smoking?
Well, there was some on that Smokefree Smokefree Women and Mom. I think there was an app on there that folks could use. So that's one that we would recommend. Any other questions? Yes. Yeah. So a lot of class about marijuana. That's not. We're trying to learn more about that. That's not necessarily my area. I think there was a presentation about marijuana. Was there one? Of this person? No, not last year. Yeah. So do you have a specific question? We hear that that's something that's happening more and more often. I know that because it's becoming legal in a lot of states, a lot of people are kind of assuming that means it's also safe. But tobacco's legal, and that's not something we recommend in pregnancy. Alcohol's legal. That's not something we recommend in pregnancy. So, there's some research about marijuana. We don't specifically know that much, but certainly something